So this is the overall effect that we're going to be achieving today, and I hope you all try it. It actually cost me nothing because I had all the paints on hand, but it really is very inexpensive to do. So you'll need a level and also a board that is the width that you want the slats to be. This one's 8 inches. The length will just be up to you. The longer the board, the less lines you'll have to make, and you'll see it come in handy later. I have an empty bowl because I'm going to mix my own paint. I really have a gray that I'll show you that I want, but I don't have enough of it, so I'm going to mix some white and a darker gray that I have that will combine to actually make this color. I also have a roller. Now this is a little roller because I don't have a big wall, but you can use a big roller if you're going to do an entire wall or a room. I have some small paint brushes. It just depends on the size that you want to make the lines. And then I have scrubby paint brushes. If you'll notice, they're beaten up paint brushes. And this is intentional because the more that you have it beaten up, the more that it'll be scratchy looking when you apply the paint. Okay, so I'm just dumping in what gray I have left in this container, and what little bit is left in the container I'll use to shade later. Then I'm just going to add some of my white from the other container and then a darker gray and blend it till I get close to the original gray color that I had. And you just want to make sure that you mix more paint than you actually need. This was all oops paint that I'd bought at various times and had used for other projects. Now that I have all the paints in, I'm just gonna mix it really, really well, and then I'll show you the final color of the gray, which is just a very, very light tint of gray, and I'm gonna paint the wall. Okay, so we have a painted wall, so let's begin. I chose not to measure the wall from top to bottom because I just started at eye level. Place the level on top of the board. Once it's level, I just draw the line across, and then you can simply move your board above and below the pencil initial line, and all your board should be even. About every third or fourth row, I do place the level back on just to make sure that I'm staying level, and then I'll go from there. Once my lines are drawn, I'm just gonna dip into the white paint, and then you're going to wipe off as much of the paint as you can. You're doing a dry brush technique. And then I'm just wisping it up and down all over the wall. It barely makes a difference, but you can tell it's a buildup of layers. So you will be able to tell. I'm just going to go back and forth with as little paint as possible. So this is the medium color that I used, and I'm just going back and forth in different areas as well. The pencil lines are still there. We'll go over them in the end once we finished everything. It's very important to remember that you dip in the paint, wipe the majority of the paint off, and just periodically rub across the wall. And like I said, it's a layering effect, so it may not show a lot at the beginning, but overall, once you keep going over it again and again. So this is my last step. It's just the darkest color that I have, and I have very little on my brush. I'm dipping and I'm offloading onto the paper towel and getting as much paint off as I possibly can, and then just wisping it across the wall here and there. Now if you get a big glob, you can take a paper towel and just wipe. It is latex paint, so you can also take a wet rag and wipe off the majority of it, and just keep going over and over and over again the wall. Okay, so now I'm going back over again if I felt like an area needed it, and again you just wiping the paint, brush off as much as possible onto your paper towel, and then just go back over it. If you find some spots are too dark, you can go back with the white and do more white, but it will create a wood look to it. And make sure you're using scrappy paint brushes. So this is just me going back and forth again with various colors. I use 3 different tones. So if I felt like you needed mid-tone, I'd use the mid-gray. If I needed white, I'd add white. If it needed some more dark spots, I'd add dark spots. Now you just take your darkest gray and one of your smaller paint brushes, and you want to just fill across the pencil lines. It doesn't have to be straight. If you want it perfectly straight, put the board up there or the level and go across the top of it. But I like the wavy lines because it makes it look more natural in my opinion. And then for the vertical lines, you can use a ruler again or the level, but I just chose to freehand the vertical lines. And I just made my lines freehand vertically. I just wanted to make sure they didn't line up one on top of the other so it looks staggered, sort of like real wood when you're laying it. And you'll see I'll make a mistake here. I just used a wet damp cloth and wiped off the excess. And then I would take a dry brush and go over the wet paint and just sort of pull it in both directions. And this just gave a little shading to the line. Here's another picture of the finished product. I also made this wreath that I hung on the wall. I made it from blackberry vines and some vines that I found out in the yard, and spent a total of $12 on the burlap and the flowers, and I'll do a video on it later and post on how I actually made it. Please remember to like, comment, and share, and join us in our Facebook group. It's The Fun Home on Facebook. Thank you and happy crafting.